Alyssa lives on a farm northwest of Rosetown where she operates her own e-commerce business, the Red Barn Company. Alyssa will tell us how she got into e-commerce and describe what is all involved in running a home-based business. Alyssa is a great example and role model for those who have the skills, desire, creativity, and attitude to operate their own business from their own home. We all look forward to hearing her story. Just a reminder before we begin, this session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. We'd also like to request that any students who watch this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found on the website homepage. Completion of the survey gets your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Once again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. Thanks for doing this, Alyssa, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Kevin, for asking me to get involved in this. As a former teacher and someone who enjoys the work that I do now, I am excited to share with students and also let people know a little bit about what it is that I do. So my name's Alyssa Dobson, and I am a former teacher turned Ecom entrepreneur. And my business is called the Red Barn Co. So I make graphic t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, all kinds of apparel for farmers. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. So as Kevin said, I am a former teacher, and I came out to the area in 2003. Came as marrying a farmer. So married a farmer. And fast forward now 15 years later, we have 3 girls and a very busy operation out here in the country on our farm. We farm with a couple of partners, and so our farm group altogether covers quite a few acres, and my responsibilities here are very fairly big, especially during the busy season. So it didn't take very long after having our first daughter in 2010 to realize that my teaching career probably wasn't going to mesh very well with my responsibilities on the farm. And that for a little while, I would be spending most of my time raising kids and being a support person to my husband, who was managing the farm. And then as life went on, and I do have a real entrepreneurial spirit and interest in learning new things, I really realized that I needed to find some work that would kind of give me some fulfillment, but would also complement the life that we have on the farm. And knowing that income would be our secondary source of income, but finding something that would really be something that I would enjoy and take on as a new challenge. So with that, kind of in a very roundabout way, I realized that there was this niche that wasn't being served in terms of graphic apparel. So if we flash back to about 2017, I had a couple of friends that were starting similar businesses in different parts of the country. And just by chance, ended up in conversations with them about how they were going to learn to start a graphic t-shirt business. And in doing some investigating, as a friend and helping these 2 friends kind of get started, I realized as a business at that Saskatchewan-based apparel. And this was becoming more popular, the words on a t-shirt trend. But I really realized that there was really nothing out there for farmers or that captured what life was like on the farm or told the story about living on a farm. And that's really, what I have been observing as someone who came from a city, moved to the farm, and started living this life. So I did a bunch of research. At this point, I had 2 older children in school, my 2 older daughters, and my youngest daughter was a baby. She was just had turned 1. So I did a bunch of research during her nap times and, in the cracks of my day when I had time. And I learned all about something called print on demand, which is a setup in a lot of graphic apparel businesses where an owner or a designer can outsource their printing to a larger printing company who will print it for them and then ship it to the end customer. So I learned about that, and that for me was a real game changer in realizing that, you know, as a busy mom at home with lots of responsibilities around the farm, I didn't think I would be able to print t-shirts, have them in my basement, and then get to town half an hour away, a couple times, maybe three times a week, and mail these things out. But when I learned about print on demand, I thought that this might be something that would work for me and it would fit my lifestyle. I did a bunch of learning about graphic design and really dove into kind of any and every YouTube video I could find regarding, you know, how to do just the very basics in Photoshop. And then I also did a bunch of learning about web design, specifically Shopify, which is a web host designed especially for e-commerce business. So people selling products online. And with all of that, and, you know, a whole bunch of optimism and really no fear, which kind of surprises me looking back, but I just decided that I thought this would be really fun. I thought I could probably make some money at it, and that would be a fit with my life. And that I was a good person to tell this story as I was living it, you know, the life on the farm, and putting that into graphic design. So I launched in May of 2018, and to my surprise, looking back at the time, I think I expected it to do well, but it did quite well, and turned into a business pretty quickly. So here's just a picture of my current lineup on the website, a new collection for winter. But so with that, there are a lot of different duties. I wear a lot of hats in this business, and sometimes that can feel kind of overwhelming. But I think if you're someone who's an entrepreneur, you have that attitude of kind of rolling up your sleeves, figuring out how to get something done, and just doing it. Outsourcing is a great thing at certain points in business, in my opinion. If you want to be, you know, making some money, you need to be careful about how much money you're spending on outsourcing. So if you're someone who's starting up a business, such as what I'm doing, or any kind of ecom business, I think the more that you can do in-house or do yourself as you're getting started and kind of starting to make some profit, the better you're going to do. So for me, I learned a ton about graphic design. I do all the photography for my business. So I had a camera that I bought back in like 2010 when my first daughter was born. And that's the one I still use. So I use that camera on a timer. All the photos that you see on my website, I've taken myself with a remote. I'm the primary model because I'm always available. And I use my family as models. So you'll see my husband and my kids modeling my stuff, and the odd time a friend. But I do all of that myself. When I started, I did do some outsourcing of photography, feeling really overwhelmed that I wouldn't be able to do that myself. But it's expensive, you know, $500 a photo shoot, and pretty quickly you're in the negative. So do all that myself, do all of my website design myself. Another learning curve there to figure that out. But in ecom businesses, web hosts are set up in a way that are really user-friendly, and there's a lot of support from, I use Shopify. So from Shopify, there's a lot of support in terms of getting set up, installing different applications to your website that will do different things, the overall look and feel. So you can access support. Again, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to learn this on your own, but it is something that's very doable. I do all my own product sourcing. So that is an interesting part of the job. I get to sort of look around and shop and figure out, you know, what I like, what prints well. That's been kind of trial and error, figuring out the products that I want to use, colors. I'm going to put a design together from, you know, the color of the hoodie to the color of the print to the print location. How is a certain print going to wear when it's washed? Different things like that are taken into account with printing. I do spend a fair bit of time, actually, my current printing partner is fantastic. So I spend a lot less time currently working with my printing partner. But since I started this business, I've had 3 different printing partners. And my current printing partner I've been with now for about 2 years. They're a small shop in Saskatoon, and they're really fantastic. But I put a lot of trust in them because I don't see the product before it is sent to the customer. They print it and they ship it. So collaborating with them, working with them, talking them through new designs, that sort of thing, it takes up a great deal of my time. Sending my orders from my website over to the printer takes up a good deal of my time as well. I've also, in the last couple of years, really organically, without really putting much work into it, had quite a few wholesale partners contact me and say, we'd really like to sell your product in our store. So that grew very much on its own. And I typically have around 20 retailers across Canada who are selling my products. So kind of goes up and down, and depending on the products and the time of year, I'll have more orders sometimes and less at other times. But that does take up some of my time as well, coordinating with them and getting their orders into the printer. Probably one of my least favorite parts of my job is the accounting side, figuring out, how much money I'm making at the end of the day, keeping track of all of my expenses and all my purchases. But that is a necessary piece of knowledge if you're going to be an entrepreneur of any sort, especially an e-com entrepreneur, I feel. And then another huge part, and I think this has really changed in even the last 3 years, is social media presence. So in an e-com business, having that presence online is huge. If I take 2 weeks off of my social media, I'll see a dramatic drop in my sales. So keeping a presence online, planning content, keeping up with the latest trends in content. So for example, right now, Instagram is preferring reels, so video content versus photo content. Figuring out, what to post, when to post, what your followers like to see, that sort of thing is a fairly large part of the job as well. And again, all of this can be outsourced, but I think when you're starting a small business, the more of it that you can do on your own, the better. So having this skill set or an aptitude to this skill set is important. And that leads me to this one. So what kind of skills and traits, personality, who would be well suited to a job in e-commerce? Certainly you need to be creative no matter what product that you're selling. You need to have that creative spark or that interest in creating whatever your product is going to be. In my area, I do really feel that having, some life experience of my niche market is important. So I know some different slang or lingo, or, some of the smaller nuances about living in the country that maybe if you grew up in a city or live in a city, you wouldn't know. And those often make their way onto my t-shirts, and those are the things that typically get purchased the most often. So having that kind of life experience or being able to anticipate the needs of your niche is important. Having, again, an aptitude for design, web design, photography, all of these things that go into creating a product, creating a website, the images and the look and feel obviously is important. Having some basic accounting skills. Again, I think a lot of people, if they're very creative, maybe they lack a little bit on the accounting side, and some people with really strong, more mathematical skills maybe would lack a little bit more on the creative side. So kind of trying to find a balance and being able to wear all those hats is important. Marketing, telling people about your products. Obviously, if you're going to sell something, people need to know that it exists. And also this kind of connects with relating to customers. I do think that a lot of people, when they are shopping, their experience in shopping now is finding not only a product that they like, but if they like the person who's selling it, I really do think that they're more likely to buy it. Or if they feel a connection to the person who's selling it. So oftentimes during harvest, I'm posting on my social media, things about meals in the field, looking after kids, cutting my lawn, gardening, that sort of thing that is showing relatability to my niche, the people who I would like to purchase from me. Trend spotting. Definitely, no matter what product you're selling, you need to know what people are buying, what is kind of hot in that area at the time. So for example, I currently have a couple of things on my website that are kind of rock and roll inspired. Rock and roll style t-shirts are sort of the trend right now. So finding out, what is selling and figuring out how to make that work in terms of what you're selling. And then lastly, I think you need to, if you're going to take on a ecom business and, look at this as a career, as you're starting out, you need to have some financial flexibility. So when I started this, I was, in my late 30s. My income is our secondary income for our family. If it flopped terribly, we would still be able to feed our kids. So I think knowing that when you start out any entrepreneurial business, that there is risk involved, and being able to weather that in case you are not making a lot of money at the beginning is important. Okay, and then in terms of facility, where do I work and what does it all look like? I typically work from home. I have a home office on the farm, which is what I'm in right now. There's all kinds of, I'm sitting actually at my husband's desk, and then my desk is in the background there. So we have a designated space set of. I often am working from my phone and my laptop, so I don't require a lot of equipment, just a basic setup. I use a laptop with an external monitor for my graphic design and photo editing work. I have a home photography studio that I've set up in my house. So luckily I have a house with a little bit of extra space than we need. So I've set up one room where I take pictures, either on a backdrop or with a white background. This one that you see here, support local farmers, eat bread, drink beer. That was one that I just took in my house on a white backdrop. There are some challenges in terms of facility or where I work. And one of those challenges is that there are typically other people here, often children, my children. And that is a challenge of, being any parent who's working from home, is having kids around and trying to work around them. If you don't have designated childcare or, time away to leave and go and do your job. And often I'm finding that I work in the cracks of my day. So rather than having, 4 hours or 5 hours a day to designate to work, like a lot of people do, or more than that, obviously, but that's not, for me, that I work a bit less than that. I don't have designated time. I have Tuesdays, which I have, my youngest is away for the day at play school. And other than that, I'm working, when everyone's busy in the evening, when I can find the time. So that can be a great thing in terms of, the work from home life, but it can also be challenging in a lot of ways too. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about print on demand. And there are, so print on demand is how a lot of t-shirt sellers operate their business. But in the world of e-commerce, there's also something called drop shipping. And drop shipping is when you as an entrepreneur set up a system where you have a larger company fulfilling your orders. So this can be done with all kinds of printable products like t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, cell phone cases, stuff like that. There's some major companies that do this kind of fulfillment for people. So essentially you can have a business where you have zero inventory in your home and you rely on a drop shipper to send out all of your inventory to your customers. So that is something that I found to be quite interesting when I started learning about this. I didn't know that was even a thing that existed, but it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. So just something that, I think is a point of interest. So my business, of course, runs all on print on demand. We don't carry any stock, any printed stock. So when I come up with a design, everything that gets sold gets printed as it's ordered. Again, my printing partner in Saskatoon is fantastic, and they do this for me. Great things about this is that we have zero waste essentially, unless there's an error with a print. But I don't have to do big blowout sales. I don't end up with overstock in certain sizes. We print one at a time, zero waste, but it is slow fashion, so it takes longer. Typically orders go out within 2 weeks, or received within 2 weeks. But again, there are some challenges with that, but I personally feel morally that is the best way to have a fashion business. I hate the idea of waste, especially when that is your money turning into waste if you end up having some. So I stock all my blank garments. They're all sitting there over at the printer ready to be printed as orders come in. And then I can change up the design. So for example, this t-shirt here, I'm going to show you this little video coming through the printer. This is called a direct-to-garment printer. It prints much like a home computer printer. It's just a little bit more high-tech. So it doesn't take a ton of specialized knowledge to operate one of these. And, some businesses such as myself buy these themselves and invest in having their own direct-to-garment printer. Again, at this stage in my life, it works better for me to not handle that part of my business. Okay, so what are some of the rewards of this line of work? Well, obviously, with any business, you're trying to make some money. For me, look around at what's going on the farm, trying to, find some humor in things to put into some of these designs and ideas. Connections with my customers, that's been really cool. I have some people that have purchased from me, 30 times over the past 5 years. And, just every time I put something new out, they're going to buy it. So that's really been awesome. Developing sometimes some longer term relationships with people via social media and customers that really are supporting me. Obviously, it feels good to build something, to feel some accomplishment. Starting from nothing, having an idea, watching it grow. For sure, I've done a ton of growth in terms of, my ability to design something, my ability to put a website together. Even taking this photo, I took this past June, just right behind my deck, a wheat field in the background that was just kind of coming. And I mean, when I started the business, I would have never thought I could take a photo like that. So, just in terms of like the look and feel of the website, there's been a lot of feelings of accomplishment there. And then when I started this, I always thought about it in short term. I know that graphic t-shirts are a trend and they won't be around forever. So looking at, what are my further opportunities for growth? What can I gain from this beyond, just basic rewards that's going to serve me going forward in my life? So certainly there are some things that are stressful. As with any job, you're going to have some stresses. There's a lot of fun to be had with this, but there are some stressors for sure. When you are trying to sell a product, you do feel some pressure to always be selling. And if you go a day or two without any sales, you start to wonder, oh no, what's going on? Do they not like my stuff, or am I not marketing it the right way, or that sort of thing. So there are stressors there, kind of waiting. I get a notification on my phone every time I sell. So there's errors, typically not a lot, but occasionally there'll be a printing error or, a wrong product sent out by my printing partner. And that just happens. And in any line of work, you're going to have those types of things happen. So dealing with those and managing customers and expectations. With the pandemic, I think a lot of the industry has seen some major manufacturing and shipping delays. And certainly this industry has not missed out on that. We've had a lot of troubles getting in certain garments from our manufacturers. That has been pretty tricky. So what I have just had to do is stock the things that I want and stock them in a pretty big quantity so that they're there. And I'm not having to rely on things being over at the supplier. I just have invested in my own stock so that I don't run into that problem as often as we were at the beginning of the pandemic. Another thing is always trying to create relevant products, things that people are going to like. And sometimes those products aren't necessarily what I would like. So sometimes I'll create something that I think is fantastic. This is going to be my new bestseller, and nobody buys it. And lucky for me, with this direct to garment model of printing, I don't have 200 of them printed and sitting in my basement. We print them one at a time. So it's not a huge loss if it's a loss of my time. If I make a mistake or an error, I don't create something that's relevant. But again, I've tried to sort of mitigate the risk there in how I've set up this business. With any job, balancing your other responsibilities. So working from home, you can be working constantly. That's just how it can be. Sometimes you just want to answer one email and do one thing, and before you know it, it's late into the night, and you've done a bunch of work. You really should probably be in bed or doing something else that is another obligation that you have at your home or with your family. And then another stressor is that your income as an entrepreneur in Ecom is not going to be steady or predictable. I always have big months in November and June. Every single year, November and June are my biggest selling months. And then January is always my slowest month. So you need to be prepared for that you'll have some months where you don't make as much money as you'd hope, and other months where maybe you'll do better than you expected. But I do think it is important to go into any business like this with eyes wide open in terms of finances. And then I want to talk a little bit about, salary and what comes along with work like this in terms of benefits. So definitely I have found that the more I work, the more I make. So if I could commit a 40-hour work week to this business, I do think it would continue to be really, really successful. There are weeks where I work 20 hours and there are weeks where I work 4 hours. And it just depends on what's going on in the other areas of my life. But when I'm working more, I'm making more money, always. Which is positive in a lot of ways, that, if you want to work hard at something, you're probably going to find more success at it if you're able to work hard at it. Now, benefits. Benefits, a lot of employers will offer benefits with employment or working for different companies. As a teacher, I had some medical and dental benefits. I had a retirement pension plan, all that kind of stuff. And with this, I'm a sole proprietor, so I don't have any of that unless I seek it out myself and purchase a plan. So there needs to be some thought put into that, that you need to do some financial planning around that. My husband being a farmer and an entrepreneur as well, obviously that is something that we consider as a family, as our financial planning. We know that we're going to have probably 3 kids that need braces. So there's a plan in place already in motion for that. But being an entrepreneur in this manner, there's no money coming at you for some of these things, these costs that will come up in your life. Whereas in a more 9-to-5 traditional job, you may have some of those benefits. So that's something to consider or think about. And then another upside to this, though, is that you do create your own work schedule. So even though your salary maybe will fluctuate up and down, depending on your work schedule, you do have that ability to create your own schedule, which is, for a lot of people, really fantastic. Okay, so what kind of education do you need to be an Ecom entrepreneur? Well, really, there's no one telling you that you need any requirements. However, and as a mother and a former teacher, I really want to stress this, that being an entrepreneur, you're spending your time and your money, that is risk. So my personal recommendation, and what I tell my kids, is that you really do need to have something to fall back on that you can always make an income on. This is my personal thought. So I feel as though I can do this because I can always go back to being a teacher. I always have that certification, that ability to get a teaching job. If I was in a situation where I couldn't feed my family, I could get a teaching job. And my husband as well. He's a farmer, but he has agronomy. He's an agronomist, has an agronomy degree, Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. That's what I was looking for. So we could always get 9-to-5s. We could always get those types of jobs and be able to, make an income that way. So having that gives us, you know, in this, for me, in this kind of secondary part of my career and my work life, my first being as a teacher, it gives me some freedom to take some risk and, you know, be able to try something. And then if it doesn't work out, I mean, it doesn't work out. And I always have a way that I can, you know, kind of move forward or in a different direction as a teacher. Beneficial training to have in this area, whatever product, you know, you're selling, would be some design skills. So I use Photoshop. There's lots of graphic design programs, but being fluent in some of these programs, Photoshop, Adobe. I use Lightroom for photography. So again, having some skills there. There's all kinds of courses and tutorials and classes people can take in those. You can also, you know, do some trial and error and do some learning on your own. Shopify, having some skills in building a website is important. Being able to use a basic spreadsheet like in Excel, just to be able to look at your finances and what you're making. And then there are also lots of courses right now people can take in terms of social media marketing. So how to sell products online and increase your online presence. So those are all trainings that you could take. I do feel like a lot of people in the generation that are in high school right now have a lot of these skills because you're very much technological natives. You've grown up using a lot of these things. So I do think that that would serve you well in this area. So I would just want to talk a little bit about how my career path has gone. I feel as though my story is a bit unique to some of those people that I would be friends with or know, and that I've taken a bit of a non-traditional career path, and I'm quite good with that. I don't feel that is anything to be, you know, anything to look down upon. I think there are a lot of different ways to build a career, and for me, having my Bachelor of Education degree, and knowing that teaching was not going to fit well for like with my 3 girls' Mother's Day last year. Again, I snapped this one myself with my camera on a timer. But through this process, you know, having a more non-traditional job, I've kind of checked a lot of boxes. I've been able to get that creative outlet that I was looking for. I've learned a ton of new skills. I also realized that having a product-based business, any type of product, your business is going to need to evolve over time. So sometimes things are trending and sometimes they're not. And if they're not, then we need to look at, you know, how are we going to continue to grow this business or continue to bring in sales by adding new products or changing up what we're offering or pivoting in a different direction. And so for me, that has always been on my radar, that when this trend of graphic apparel starts to decrease, and it is starting, the market is fairly saturated at the moment, how will I take what I've learned and then pivot into whatever my next venture will be? So I think that that's kind of a unique aspect of my own process or evolution of building work for myself in my current role. Opportunities with what I've built with the Red Barn Co. There over the years, obviously website growth, sales increasing through the website, and then recognizing when something is trending and I should really try to jump on that, and when something is really saturated in that market and realizing where I should scale back. I've been able to, of course, continue to work with various retail customers. So through wholesale, this is an image here from a shop that stocks my stuff in Swift Current. Different partnerships have kind of come my way through this. So I have a couple of different agricultural organizations that I'll be working with here in this new year, creating some graphic apparel for them. So that's been kind of a neat thing, and sort of extended my, you know, meeting some new people, learning about some different organizations has been really interesting and good opportunity for me. I'm always doing custom work, so I'll often get, you know, teams, groups, clubs asking me to design something for them and have it printed and that sort of thing. And then certainly just the knowledge that I've gained from building this business and running it is going to lead to some opportunities down the road, which I'm quite excited about. And I think when the time comes, I'll be ready to jump into that. Specifically, I think I'll be looking at building websites and graphic design for other small businesses. So work-life balance with any job is, I think, a struggle for a lot of people, especially when you're working from home. It can be a real challenge. So I think setting some office hours and some boundaries around technology use, not answering emails after a certain time of the day, turning your phone off. I have a do not disturb that I have to go on at about 8 o'clock, and then I don't check it again till the morning. So I think that's important in any job. And it's tricky now that a lot of people do work from home. It is tricky to set those boundaries for yourself, but I do think it's important for long-term success. And then managing your financial expectations. Again, as an entrepreneur, you're taking on some risk, and there are certainly times of financial reward, but realizing that you may have times that you're doing better than others financially, and just managing the expectations that come with being an entrepreneur in that regard. And so that is my presentation, and I suppose I will take some questions.
Excellent, Alyssa. That's I'm impressed. I mean, I always knew about the Red Barn Company, but I had no idea that you were doing that direct. What was the term for?
Yeah, it's called direct to garment. Yeah.
Yeah, like what a great concept too, because like you said, not a waste. Like you're not having these sizes of product that nobody was buying and sitting in boxes. I just envisioned that your basement was full of boxes full of shirts, and you're sort through things and ship them in the mail.
No, none.
That's for a home-based business. That's a real plus too, because you'd almost have to have a dedicated space for that, and that would be difficult.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
One thing that I can take away from this a little bit, and is that I taught with you, and I just know how great you are at teaching. But I think what you kind of told us today, and what I take from this, is that a person, a lot of people, yourself included, you're capable of more than one thing. I mean, a career. I think sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves into careers and say, well, that's what I've trained for, that's what I got to do, and it may work out for you and it may be fine. But it just, I think a lot of people could maybe take away from this is that there's probably all of us are capable of more than just one thing. They could be quite different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think that is becoming more of a, I wouldn't say, I think the word that comes to mind is more accepted. I do think in the past there was an expectation that you train for something and then you'll do that for 30 years or however long. But I do think that people are starting to realize that careers can change and evolve, and you can go in different directions. And like you said, you are capable of more than one thing.
Yeah. Your skill sets are can lead to different things, and sometimes we just have to explore those skill sets and where it could take us.
Right.
Any idea e-commerce in Saskatchewan? Like, what is there any numbers out there? How many people are doing? maybe not in retail. I guess kind of home-based businesses. I guess because is this.
Yeah. So I would kind of classify that in two different areas. I think there's e-commerce, like my own business, and then like a local retailer on Main Street of your small town that's branching into Ecom to sell their products online in a response to pandemic shopping, moving online. So I think that's one area. And then I think there's a whole nother facet in terms of multi-level marketing businesses. So these would be like selling makeup, nail polish through some of these larger companies. So I think it can look at a lot of different ways. I think you can be an e-com entrepreneur without having to develop a product like I have, by selling something that you really love, or a product that you really like. So in terms of numbers, I wouldn't have a clue, but I do think it really does seem to really have grown a ton, especially since 2020. Yeah,
you're probably right. I would assume that with the pandemic that it's been more than before, for sure. Mm-hmm. Are any questions from Gord, Renette?
I think, Alyssa, you've covered it all very well. I think it's really nice for you to explain to students, just the path that you've taken, and that it really is accessible to anybody with, some ambition and, creativity. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
I think we'll pause that then.